Guy Powell here, and welcome to the next episode of the Backstory on Marketing and AI. If you haven't already done so, please visit ProRelevant.com and sign up for all of these episodes and podcasts. I am the author of the recently released book, The Post-COVID Marketing Machine, Prepare Your Team to Win. And I'm also the author of an upcoming book which I'm calling The AI Marketing Machine. And if you'd like more information, please go to marketingmachine.prorelevant.com. Today, I'm interviewing Nick Kraus of Kraus Marketing. So let me tell you a little bit about him. He is an accomplished entrepreneur and business leader, serving as the founder and CEO of Kraus Marketing. It's an award-winning agency known for its exceptional marketing strategy and creative. Nick is also an author and recognized thought leader, sharing his expertise regarding digital marketing, AI, and industry trends. Nick, so good to have you. Welcome.
Thank you, Guy. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like you've got an interesting past. So tell us a little bit about your backstory on AI and marketing. How did you get involved in this mess?
Yeah, I think if you don't get involved in it as a marketing leader, you're going to be left behind. And that's how we felt all along with marketing. We've been in the mix since the early 2000s. Of course, that had the whole entire dot-com boom. When I started building brands and websites, they were just for that. It was a website online that people could go and look at. Of course, now we know it's one of the leading marketing tools, and digital is by far the most important advertising tactic and tool and marketing tool. So along the way, we have always embraced technology. We've embraced very early days of search engine optimization, very early days of social media marketing, of course, email marketing along the way as well. We keep those. We continue to do those. Now, CTV as opposed to linear television has become extremely relevant. And when AI came on the scene, just like everything else that comes on the scene, we immediately dive in. One of the funny ones that we actually dove into a couple of years ago was the metaverse. We went real deep into that, and that was actually pretty short-lived. Most of these don't tend to be trends, though. Most of these tend to live on. AI is definitely one of those. I would bet my house and my company on that. And we have a team of nearly 50, and to make sure that we're on top of everything is important. AI creates efficiencies. It creates efficiencies for Kraus Marketing, but also for our clients. And I told my team last year, very early on, I want everyone to have a subscription to ChatGPT. Let's also make sure that we analyze all the other softwares as they emerge. And talk to each other about what we're utilizing. In the beginning of this year, what we did was we actually created a process and rules of how to utilize AI and what softwares we could actually use within the business and how we use them. And that's a live document that gets updated, people get trained on. So for me, it was early on because obviously as a business owner, it's a great opportunity to create efficiencies as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You bring up the metaverse, and I think it's still out there, but it certainly did not deliver on its promises, which is interesting. And I do agree with you that AI in marketing is going to last a long time. And I think because it's so valuable, it's going to be here with us. And actually, marketers now that don't use AI, I think they're going to be at a loss and certainly a strong competitive disadvantage if they don't use that.
Agreed. It's changed the way that we've done business. It's taken the stagecoach that's pulled by a horse to a gasoline engine, to a petroleum engine. If you're still, there's no delivery companies that are using horses anymore. So I would assume that in the near future, if not most of them already, are using AI, most of those marketing agencies. But in the near future, everybody will utilize it or just be left.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And there are some governance issues and some concerns that way.
Yes.
And holding back some companies. Generally, they're holding back though the whole category. And from a competitive perspective, it may not be so bad, but from an overall perspective, if you're not into AI today, man, oh man, you're definitely behind.
Agreed.
Now, you wrote a book called The Shark Bite Method. Tell us about that.
Yeah, the Shark Bite Method is a book that helps any CMO or marketing director really understand how to utilize the several digital marketing tactics out there to create a digital strategy, doing it in an efficient way, and doing it in a way that utilizes an in-house team or an outside agency to get it done. What I found is when I'm working with, whether it's enterprise level companies, middle market, or even some of the small companies, a lot of them just don't understand how to put together a digital marketing strategy. So the book outlines what it is, how to do it in pretty layman terms. And then also all the efficient processes that we've learned over 2 decades of creating digital marketing strategies. I actually found that the larger the company, the less they knew about digital marketing. Smaller companies, the CEOs, the entrepreneurs, and even the marketing directors of the smaller companies actually understand digital marketing a lot more than a lot of these CMOs of these billion-dollar and $100 million corporations. So it actually was written for the larger customer more than the smaller, to tell you the truth.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, you're right. You would think that the CMOs of the larger companies understand digital marketing better, but I guess it's the bobbing and weaving and the entrepreneurial nature of the smaller companies that, forces the owner or forces the CMO or the VP of marketing to really understand how every dollar and every penny are being spent so that they can squeeze everything they can out of it.
Yes. And CMOs of these enterprise companies, to give them credit, are focused on brand and also keeping up with just what the demands are of thousands of employees. There's a little bit different of priorities set forth on them. And then when it comes to the marketing and advertising strategy, especially when it relates to digital, typically they hire someone in-house that handles that utilizes an outside agency to focus on it, but they don't understand it a whole lot. So a lot of time educating, and I said, why don't we put together a book? And then every time I reference something, I just could send them that chapter, like as simple as creating your content calendar or your annual strategy or your creative brief. Some of these things, documents, most of my clients, when we start working with them, don't have in-house, and we could help them create those documents and the best practices around them.
Yeah, you're right, though, too. You have then the CMO of a larger company. They are, I think, probably more focused on the brand and certainly the personnel issues that they've got. But they're looking at how do I grow the brand and or how do I maintain the brand or shift the brand if necessary, as opposed to being more tactical for smaller companies. So I can see where that is definitely a concern. And maybe that's the flip side of the shark bite method is how do you get the smaller companies then to do more than just worry about digital marketing and focus a little bit more on their brand.
That's a really good point, Guy, because I couldn't agree more that a lot of them want to spend money on the digital marketing and advertising portion of things before they actually have a brand that's worth putting out there. So that is a pretty good observation.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You've been in marketing for quite a while, me too. And what were your initial thoughts as you saw AI just exploding and surging into the marketing sphere and now really almost taking it over?
Yeah. The first one was like, oh no. And every once in a while, I say, oh no, where is this going to go? Every time a new video AI generation platform is created as of recent, or image or logos. And what I always, so the first reaction was fear and threat. And every once in a while, again, it's still a little bit of fear, but I think that's not too uncommon. You're worried that someone's going to take your job or the computer is going to take your job. But as time has gone on, I look at it as a calculator that as soon as the calculator came out, no one did long form math anymore. I believe that AI is going to help us do things much more efficiently, but there still needs to be the idea guy, which is the person that prompts it. And it's not just idea guy. I think that's put lightly. You need a professional with the understanding of brand, with the understanding of strategy, and the understanding on how to prompt the tool in order to create the content and the creative that you're looking for. And then you need a person that's good enough with curation that really understands what came out the other side. Is this right for me, for my brand, for my company? So that helps me sleep at night because I know that for a fact. I know when Illustrator and Photoshop became on everyone's desktop, they all thought they were graphic designers, which is what I'm originally trained in, is graphic design. And then I realized quickly, just because they have the tool doesn't mean that they're good at using the tool. I think that should help every marketer sleep at night as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is interesting. You came out of the graphic design side of things, and now the AI, and even in generating graphics and even videos, it's gotten pretty advanced. And so what do you use for your AI in generating content, both
Yes.
on the graphic side and I guess the video and also the copy side?
So with the video, while we've played with a lot of tools, we haven't replaced anything that we're doing as far as a creative aspect of it. We have been using, from the video side, help with storyboarding, and that's imagery side, as opposed to having to search for a bunch of stock photography. Now you can have a couple of these different platforms create a storyboard on your behalf. But from the content side, we're using three different tools. ChatGPT, that's more from a sales and admin side. From the copywriter side, from our actual creatives, it's Jasper. Have you heard of Jasper before?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's Jasper. And then from a research side, it's Perplexity. So Perplexity, so those first two help you write the content. Perplexity is really good at research and citing items and very niche. The way that they're crawling and scraping the web for content that's related to specific industries is, we find, much higher level than the first two mentioned. And so those are the three that we're utilizing within our processes.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, a lot of folks are, I think, using Perplexity just like you're talking about, and it makes a lot of sense because you do want to. It's funny. You go to the web for research and just knowledge generation or retrieval of what you need to know out there as you're building whatever it is for your clients. And that's a big deal. And it's funny too. It's really interesting to see how search has changed. I go into Google now and I use the AI overview right at the top there. And I'm not clicking on links and I'm not clicking on sponsored links nearly anywhere near as much as I used to.
Yeah,
And
unfortunate. It's the zero click results that are leading to decreases in organic search traffic.
yeah,
A
yeah,
lot of our clients have been so highly focused on, but the valuable traffic, I still believe, comes there when people are looking to purchase or get a quote or look at an actual service. But the educational piece we are losing, and that educational piece associates someone at the top of the funnel with, right? They're at the top of the funnel, just getting awareness of the topic, that we lose that association with our brand, right? So while they're getting educated, they're learning about your company, while they're looking at blogs on your page, now they're reading the conclusion or that generated tool at the top of Google there. And it's a shame because it's our content. It's our content that us marketers and
Mhm.
companies have spent decades putting together. They're taking it and they're generating it into their own content, and then we're not garnishing any results from it. But it's what it's become for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, what's interesting as well, how the sourcing of the content, just like you said, I wrote this blog and I thought some good ideas in it, and then ChatGPT or Gemini summarizes it and then presents it to you without any real attribution. And actually last night we were talking about that as especially for images is who owns the license to the generated image. And it certainly seems the ChatGPT or the AI that's generating the derivative image has to be able to somehow license and pay a royalty almost to the original image creator or the original image
You would like
owner.
to think, and I know there was a lawsuit by the New York Times and also by Getty Images last year because there was watermarked images showing up
Yeah.
in the image generated, and then also New York Times was able to prove that some of the content showing up was theirs as well. So you would think that would happen, but I'm not sure it ever will. And then on the other side of things, from the law that I've read, is that you can't trademark anything or copyright. Copyright might be a different term, but it is not your proprietary data or invention if it was generated by AI. Now, who's going to
Hmm.
tell you whether it was or not? It's hard for someone to prove that it was AI created, although we do have those tools now as well. But that is the current copyright rule in many states, is that if AI creates it, then you
Yeah.
can't, yeah, you
Yeah,
can't
but
call.
what is the couple of interesting points there is what is AI created? So if I take my own words and say ChatGPT improve these, and then I take those improved words and then I make some modifications to it and then publish that, do I own all three of those or do I just own two of that or do I just own the sentences that I changed? I
Exactly.
think it'll be interesting. Now with this dinner that I was at last night, all of the companies are most worried about the ownership of the images. And so what's going on is companies like Getty, they're actually, and I don't know exactly what's happening behind the scenes, but these larger brands are being forced to go to Getty or some of the other image houses and have them create the images, because then they know that what gets created by Getty is based on a licensed image, and then you're
Wow.
paying something
Makes
that
sense.
then you have the license to, or the royalty, or not the license to use it.
Very cool. That makes a lot of sense. And they have the libraries to
Yeah,
help
yeah,
you with the
yeah.
data that we were talking about and the issues that we were talking about earlier about how without the proper content and data, these images and definitely the video are lacking in the meantime. So with the proper libraries, the algorithms can do the work. It's just really it's the data that's required in order to get it done. So that's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's going to be some interesting legal challenges, and that's certainly one issue. And I don't want to belabor that too much. I think it'll get resolved here in a little bit. But what are some of the other big issues that you've seen as you've been using AI in marketing?
I think one of the biggest issues and challenges is really training people on it. I see stuff come across my desk and across social media that's very obvious AI to me. And I always say to a client, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, if it's not on brand, then it's not going to do well. So for
Hmm.
me, it's consciously, I could see that, hey, friend, you did not write that post on social media. I've never known you to be that articulate or use that many adjectives, and let alone put together 3 paragraphs. So consciously it comes off brand to me. For other people, it might be subconsciously, and for that reason, it may not perform as well. So I think that's one of the big challenges is teaching people how to use it, and then keep teaching people how to keep it on brand. I also have seen people then just trust anything that comes out of it. We know that AI has hallucinations, and those hallucinations are the requirement that it gives an answer, even if it doesn't know the answer, and therefore sometimes gives the wrong answer. The curation, I think, is one of the biggest challenges. People just trust that the LLM gave it to them, and for that reason, that they should trust it. And I think that's a junior mindset
Hmm.
or an on-taught mindset, but people need to know to be skeptical of what is produced and what is created to you and make sure that it's good. And I think those are the 2 biggest challenges. It's the garbage in, garbage out scenario, I guess, for lack of a better phrase that goes along with it. And then another challenge with AI in general is just displacement of work and jobs. That's more of a societal and economic result that and fallout that we haven't quite seen yet, but definitely will be there.
Yeah, I go back and forth. There's certainly a lot to be said that certain types of jobs are going to be not eliminated, but certainly reduced. I think, though, on the other hand, you're going to have other jobs that are going to pop out of it. I don't know when it was 20 years ago that you had this office automation thing going on where you'd have then word processors and you wouldn't need all these typists and stuff like that. And yet the productivity of office workers went up, but it also, there's more office workers. And so they're doing many different things, I think. And for the sake of society, I'm hoping that'll be the case as well, is that it'll just be a shift. And the knowledge workers, I think, in marketers in particular, I think are knowledge workers. I'd put them into that group. I think they're going to need to be able to shift with the times as well. Their job of writing copy is now not going to be writing copy per se, but how can I get better copy supported by AI and maybe get 10 different versions of it or 100 different versions of it, which then leads to more personalization, which leads to better marketing output, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think what happens next is we deliver more value with in the same amount of time, and for that reason, marketing in a way becomes less expensive to a lot of organizations. And I also would agree, especially from the marketing aspect. I don't think this is blanket across the board, but I don't know enough about all the different industries and niches in the world as far as jobs go. But for the marketing aspect, AI will not replace your job. It's the person that knows how to use AI who will replace you.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's the most important thing for people to understand. Embrace it. You know, be the guy that knows how to use it. You'll be just fine.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that sentiment as well. And that's certainly been coming on pretty strong over the last couple months as I've been doing these podcasts. So what kind of common questions have you been getting as you've been speaking about AI and promoting AI in the world? What other kinds of questions have you been getting?
People want to understand where their data is going, how it's going to be utilized, right? So the bigger corporations that we talk to, so we do training for larger corporations about the different AI tools that are could be utilized is their fear of it going into this box that is open and allows everyone else to see. So that would be one of them. There's questions around the quality and the data of it, and the uses of it, and then just like where it's going and how quickly it will be adopted. And I think until we see these larger corporations, we see it in a way, larger corporations using it in an innovative way, AI that is, but we don't see them using it in an everyday type of way just yet. I could tell you that the largest enterprise companies that we work with, 10 of the top 500 in the world, and I can tell you that their marketing departments aren't using it at all, mostly because the CIOs will not allow them to. They basically block
Yeah.
everything from being
Yeah.
utilized. So until there's adoption within normal day-to-day jobs by the largest enterprises, I feel like that is one of the biggest challenges of AI actually becoming utilized a lot more. Because once the bigger ones use it, more money will be invested in it from the invention in the company side, from the vendor side, and then it'll be more affordable for companies on a smaller side to utilize, but also we a lot of times follow suit of what the bigger guys are doing. So those are the challenges of it's a lot about data protection and fear right now, and not knowing how to institute it and how do we make it a process and how does it become part of our day-to-day life. And there's a lot of hurdles to get through. Change management, it doesn't always come down to cost of software. Change management is a huge cost in itself. So that creating those processes are very costly as well. So I think that's a challenge that a lot of these companies are facing too.
Yeah, and certainly as you get into more regulated and more, I don't know, risky kinds of businesses like healthcare or banking or financial services, that's where we've run into some interesting roadblocks that the marketers have suffered through, especially in banking, where IT just turned off all references to
Right.
or all access to AI. And it's changing. I think they're getting a little more
Yes.
comfortable with it. They need to make sure that the data is protected and behind some kind of a firewall in some
Yep.
respect. But
Which is
it's
becoming more achievable and easier for
yeah,
companies.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. One thing you mentioned before, and I meant to ask, we were talking about the brand and when making sure your outputs are following your brand and your brand guidelines. How have you been able to do that? So where instead of taking the output from ChatGPT and publishing it, how do you match that with the brand guidelines? Have you been working through
Yeah.
things like that?
Yeah, so a lot of times you can, with the prompting, you could type in the URL and ask it to sound that way. With Jasper specifically, which is a lot of our content creation that is on brand, it'll actually ask brand values and guidelines associated with it. So it creates content more like it, and you can create profiles for your different brands. So for content, for copy is really the only thing that we're using it for. And I wouldn't say final draft, first draft use as far as a creative aspect goes. For anything from like from a design or image output aspect, we're really only using it for ideation. I wouldn't even call it a first draft. Like it is nice to pop in some different ideas and see what it generates as far as logos go. But for the most part, it's just more directional and composition related. Sometimes it's color related, but I feel like those are pretty far off. And then to just go back to answer your question, from a brand perspective, copy is where you're utilizing a lot. And Jasper does have some tools that allow you to make sure that it's on brand, including with ChatGPT. If you go back to that one, if you type in the URL and ask it to be on brand to that URL, it will create content that sounds more like your content. It's actually, it's a pretty easy cheat code.
Yeah, yeah, fantastic. Just curious, what do you have as like a really good case study where you've used AI and got the whole process down and really made some great results for your clients, of course, that you can speak of?
Yeah. Yeah, I can only speak from in a general perspective. I think that so we do a ton of content creation. And so we've revised how we create copy from a social and long form kind for blogs or service related pages. And that starts with a content calendar. And that content calendar could even be generated utilizing AI. So at Kraus Marketing, we're very process oriented, and everything we do has a template to the process. It's literally a step-to-step guide of how we go about doing all of our marketing strategy. That's why we wrote a book on it. And I would say from the copy creation side, from the ideation to the finalization of the content calendar, to the ideation and finalization of the social media copy and long form copy we're utilizing. We find that there's different aspects, right? There's a lot of the content isn't final as far as it goes, as far as long form copy for sure. And then SEO, when you're optimizing for keywords, we find that a lot of them are really bad at that. The keywords just are very generic, and the understanding is just not there of what a keyword actually is. That's another part that is a little bit more human. But as a case study, I would say that's something that we've become really efficient at. Now, in small parts, again, creation of storyboards, we've been using it in video production. I think that is a huge help. Research for pitch decks. So from the sales side, Perplexity has been amazing. What used to take you 2 or 3 hours to find different industry standards and cost money sometimes, right? To get data that you needed on the different industries, from revenues to sales to penetration rates, et cetera. Those used to take forever. Now you can go on Perplexity and it'll pump up all this data into one spot, and it'll even give you graphs about it. That's been very helpful. And I do hedge that with saying, this is how I always tell my sales guys to present that. I said, here's what we found. Does this resonate?
Yeah.
And we always used to do that with even the purchase data, because we know that it wasn't always perfect, but definitely when you're utilizing AI to generate something, I always say, does it resonate? Does that make sense to you? And then they're always like, oh yeah, this definitely has increased this year. And yeah, we see the penetration rate of that about being on point. And oh, that's an interesting one. I would have to look into that more, but that has taken hours worth of work and turned it into minutes. So those are some of the different use cases that Kraus Marketing has been using it on. And what we have been training some of our clients on how to use it as well, to build it into their processes too.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And you're right, on the agency side, a leg up of having really good research on your client and being able to get it quickly and more complete makes a huge difference. And Perplexity definitely has that capability. Let me change gears here a minute. And if you were to give advice to a new up and coming marketer, what would be the advice you'd give them so that they could be very successful as they get into the marketing environment?
So it's pretty funny, because what I find is everyone always looks to the young guy, the young person, to know the new technology, right? So for decades, the last decade, it's been social media. They feel like they could hire a junior and they're going to know how to do social media. It turns out most part, they know how to use social media, but they don't know how to use social media as a marketing tool. Although now universities are actually teaching it. They're still juniors, right? But with that being said, the ability to speak to AI and know the different tools that are out there and to utilize them is going to be very intriguing to a hiring manager. If you could talk to 4 or 5 different tools and how you utilize them within your creative process, I think that is going to set you apart. But I would say that's needed. But the more obvious ones and the less utilized ones would be networking, like know people out there. There's networking groups, or AMA, American Marketing Association. There's entrepreneur groups that you can go to, and you could get to know people within the business world. It's amazing how far that goes. And the young person in the room always garners the most attention. A 22-year-old guy or girl or man or woman in a group full of 40 and 50 and 60 somethings, they always get attention because they bring energy, they're young, they're interesting, they have great questions. And if you are up and coming or newly out of college and you want to break in, I would say network yourself. It's very unusual for young people to network. People wait until their 30s and 40s to start networking, which is absurd. And then I would do one last one. So we got technology, we got networking, and then the third is a portfolio. And if you're on the strategy side, have some analytics of something that you've done and be able to talk to that one case study, even if it's just one. If it's 2 or 3, even better. If you're on the design side, make sure your portfolio is beautiful. I could tell you that every time we put a graphic design post out for a job, we'll get 100 or 200 portfolios in. We don't look at resumes, we look at portfolios first. So make sure your portfolio is on point. You could have a great portfolio, but if it's not digital and doesn't have a simple website, it could be a portfolio website, or it should be something easy to use that everyone goes on. Upload it and make sure your stuff looks really good, because no one's looking at your resume until they look at your portfolio. And same from the content side as well. So whether you're on the strategy or on the creative side, having a portfolio and some type of case study or work to show is a foot in the door. And I would say, if you're not hitting those 3, you're not getting a job for the most part at a good place, but probably for the most part, you're not going to get a job. You need to know people, you need to know the technology, and you need to show that you could actually get it done. And that's the best way to show that is something prior. And that, by the way, Guy, I think people get nervous about this. It doesn't have to be a real life study. it could be classwork. It's still
Yeah,
just
right, right.
relevant, right?
Yeah, I like that. That's very good. I especially like your mention of the AMA. It sounds like you're in the AMA in
Yep.
New Jersey, and I'm on the board here in Atlanta. Yeah, go AMA.
Yeah, definitely. And what a great spot for anyone to get to know other people. But this is where people are meeting and
Yeah.
hiring people all the time and learning, by the way, as well.
And the
And
discussions and the panels and the speakers, they're talking about the challenges that they have today, which are the most recent challenges. They're not looking at something that's 2, 3, 4 years old. It's today. So it's the most current stuff. So,
yep, good
yeah,
point.
fantastic. Yeah, Nick, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. It's been great to have you participating in our podcast. Where can people reach you and where can people find your book, The Shark Bite Method?
Yeah, krausmarketing.com, Kraus marketing.com. And then Shark Bite Method is on Amazon, one of the top sellers this year.
Wow, fantastic. Yeah, it's congratulations on having a top-selling book in marketing. It's not an easy thing to do, that's for sure. So it's at krausmarketing.com, Kraus marketing.com. And then the book is The Shark Bite Method on Amazon.
Yep, that's right. Thank you, Guy.
Yeah, thank you. And for the audience, please stay tuned for many other videos in this series of the backstory on marketing and AI. And please visit marketingmachine.prorelevant.com and download some excerpts from my book and also find out some more about my upcoming book, The AI Marketing Machine. Nick, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you again, Guy. Appreciate it.